The reticular activating system is an area I like to refer to as the filter. This is my second favorite area of the brain, but it's more like a hub of the network than a particular brain like area. This tiny but powerful hub of the network is part of the brainstem, and it gets input from most of the five senses. It acts sort of like a gatekeeper or a filter for everything we're exposed to in any given moment. The amount of information that is processed by our senses in any given moment is so immense that our brain can't consciously process it all at once. So it focuses on what you tell it is important. For example, glance around the room that you're in right now. Look for and count any item, let's say that's brown. Just glance around and count quickly. How many things did you count? Now tell me, how many red items did you notice? Now take a look around and count the red items, or blue if there's nothing red there. But it's interesting, isn't it? Those red items were always there, but you didn't notice them as much when you were focused on brown. So the filter selectively allows in prioritized information. This area also plays a critical role in our sleep and arousal states by taking stimulus like sunlight, alarm sounds, or other triggers, and organizing it to help us wind down or wake up in the morning. Think of it as the brain's attention center. But once we are awake, the filter helps us to accomplish goals by directing our attention and concentration towards input that helps to meet the goal. So, said another way, our goals represent prioritized information. So what our brains process is what we tell our brains is important to process. It's the reason that, like, once you buy a new car, say you bought a blue SUV, you seem to notice blue SUVs everywhere. Or why, when you're in a crowd of people and you hear what kind of sounds like your name, you kind of snap to attention. Both the car and your name, or that color in the room that we looked for earlier, are prioritized information. Did everyone just decide to buy a new blue SUV the same day that you did? Or did that other color all of a sudden just appear in the room? Of course not. They were always there. Your brain just started to notice it more because your purchase, like of the car, told your filter that it was important to you. I love psychologist Rick Hanson's description of prioritized information. He says it like this: your attention is like a combination spotlight and vacuum cleaner. It highlights what it lands on and then sucks it into your brain for better or for worse. So, how can we influence this area? The reticular activating system focuses on and filters in what you tell it is important to you. So tell it what's important to you, like what's really important to you. And if you're not clear on what that is, then now's a great time to do some core values work and get in touch with that. And in the meantime, quit focusing on all the less relevant crap that's out there. You're missing out on all the great stuff that's also happening. So listen to this. In 2004, a famous study was published where functional MRI electrodes were attached to the heads of two groups of piano players so they could see what was happening in their brains. They asked each group to play a 5-stroke sequence over a few hours. One group physically played the piano, while the other group simply visualized playing the piano. The wild result, when they looked at the brain images, was that in both groups, the same areas of the brain were active. Interesting. Now, in another well-known study, anti-Parkinson's medication was swapped out for a placebo injection over the course of 5 days. The interesting part is at the end of the 5 days, the patients with the placebo reported the same decrease in neurological symptoms as the group who actually received the drug. Now, both of these examples tell us that the brain, when something is repeated, can't always tell the difference between what's real versus what's imagined or visualized. Or said another way, whether you're actually doing something or simply thinking about doing something, your brain will process it and respond in the same way. Now, we talked about this earlier when we did that lemon eating exercise too, right? So, visualization, or what you think about, can have both helpful and unhelpful results. So, be mindful about what you spend your time thinking about. But the filter also works in reverse. If there's a change that you want to see happen, tell your brain repeatedly what it is that you do want. And I'm not talking fantasy wishful thinking like, I want a check for $1 million to show up in my mailbox tomorrow, or I want my marriage to improve this week. But a directional goal, a goal based on a grounded, helpful thought pattern or belief, one that moves you towards that outcome. Something more like, I'm someone who can find a way to make money that will grow into $1 million in X amount of time. Or I'm part of a successful marriage that is growing into loving interdependence. Then, with those kinds of goal-directed grounding thoughts, your brain says, oh, well then, if that's what you want, let me start to notice and bring things up that match that to your attention. Why? You know why? Because your brain loves energy efficient harmony. And it will start to respond and filter in things in your environment that match your thoughts. Now, if you want an easy tip to improving any relationship, start noticing the terrific things that your partner does do right now. All the things you love about them, not just the ways they hurt you in the past. Those things won't go away. But if you're both doing the work, like right now, tell your brain what you want to see more of, and it will start to show you. And you may just be pleasantly surprised at your partner's behavioral response. But you have to do it repeatedly for it to counterbalance any unconsciously stored beliefs that are silently working against you and have been doing so for a lot longer period of time. And of course, you still need to take some action. Opportunity and people will cross your paths, some that may have always been there, but your brain just didn't see it in the same way as it does now. But then once it presents itself, you still need to move forward and actually take a step towards actualizing it. In the partner example I just gave, the action is your words or verbally acknowledging what your brain is noticing. The term manifestation is a popular, sometimes misused word that does not mean just visualizing something and it will just happen. True manifestation of anything, I believe, is visualization coupled with an action that is born from the visualization. There is a word for visualization by itself. It's called daydreaming. And by itself, it won't get you very far. Now, I understand that goal setting and envisioning the future that you want can be really difficult when you're also in the process of challenging old unhelpful thought patterns and wiring in beliefs about yourself, like new ones. So if it's too disruptive for you to work on retraining your unconscious beliefs and focusing on a new goal at the same time, work on aligning your beliefs first, then work on the future that you want to create. Sometimes it's actually easier to set goals after you've gained some traction in changing some of your thought patterns. Because in the process of regulating your nervous system and reconnecting to your core values, you're going to gain a lot of clarity about what you really want. Let's move on.